Well, it was a case that struck at the heart of the capital region. 5-year-old Kenneth White killed, his body dumped in the snow, his cousin charged with his murder. We received a lot of questions from you about how Kenneth and his siblings came to live in a home with his aunt and his cousin that was shut down by code enforcement just days after his death. Tori Wells set out to learn more about how children may end up living with a relative.
On a cold winter day in Knox, Michelle Fusco sets up this table to bring awareness to Kenneth's Army, a group Fusco formed after 5-year-old Kenneth White was killed.
We decided, instead of just sitting at home on our computers talking about it, let's do something about it.
The group raising money for a Kenneth White scholarship, focusing on legislation and finding answers.
I think the questions everyone has is, why were they in that home to begin with? Where was the oversight?
Fusco and her group are not the only ones asking questions, and that's why we started to look into this. Here at Family Court, records are not open to the public, so we cannot find out if the arrangement happened here in court. We did ask Kenneth's biological mother and his aunt, who he was living with, if they would speak with us. They have not.
So we decided to ask a more basic question. What are the ways a child could end up with a relative in New York State? Margaret Burt is an expert in child welfare and family court proceedings. She's from the Rochester area and has nothing to do with Kenneth White's case.
Parents do have a significant amount of rights under the Constitution to make choices about how they raise their children and who helps them raise their children.
Burt says there are 4 ways a child can come to live with a relative in New York. The first 2 don't involve a judge, don't happen in court. A casual arrangement happens when a parent leaves a child in another person's care. To make it a bit more formal, the parent can designate someone else in writing to make some decisions for a child.
It's essentially a form that's not handled in court. They sign it under oath in front of a notary.
The third way is if the Department of Social Services asks a judge to place a child with a relative. That would happen in family court. So would the fourth way, which is custody or guardianship.
If a parent is in agreement, it can be a very simple matter where the parties simply appear before the court, maybe without any lawyers at all. The judge might ask a few questions.
Other times, lawyers may be involved. The judge can even appoint one for the child. No matter the circumstances, Burt says the law requires a judge check the sex offender registry, check for orders of protection, and look for prior child abuse or neglect claims. The judge can also decide to dig deeper or even send a private social worker for a home visit. Burt says the judge also has the power to have the local DSS investigate, but only if that judge has a reasonable suspicion of abuse or neglect.
The typical custody or guardianship would not involve a local Department of Social Services at all. They do not routinely investigate private custody arrangements. That's not the way the law is set up.
Again, we don't know what the circumstances were in this case, and if they even played out in court. Fusco thinks the community would like answers, so it knows other children are being protected moving forward.
It's a bigger issue, and in order for Kenneth to have the voice that he never had, if we could help even maybe one child.
Tori Wells, CBS 6 News.
And Tori tells us that we did ask Albany County officials if they wanted to speak on this topic, and they declined.